Hi, I'm Tim Coombs, and I'm going to tell you the story of the prodigal son. There was a father who had two sons, and the younger one said to his father, "Father, I can't wait for you to die. Give me my share of my inheritance now." Well, the father divided his property between his two sons. And when the younger son had gathered all that was now his, he went off to a distant country where he squandered what he had on wild living. And when every last cent of his money was spent, a severe famine hit the land, and the son became in want. So he hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him out into the fields to feed pigs. Oh, the son would have been happy just to eat the slop that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him a thing. Finally, he came to himself and said, "How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to eat, and here I am starving to death? I know. I will return to my father, and I'll say, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you.' I am no longer worthy to be called your son." Oh, that's good. "Treat me as one of your hired servants." And then he left to return to his father. And when his father saw him still at a distance, he became filled with compassion. And he ran out to meet his son and threw his arms around him and kissed him. And his son said, "Oh, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me." But the father stopped him and called to a servant and said, "Bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Bring a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, that we might celebrate. Because the son of mine was dead and now is alive. He was lost and now is found." And they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older brother was out in the fields. And when he returned home, he heard the sound of the celebration. And so he asked one of the servants, "What's going on there?" And the servant said, "Your brother has returned safe and sound, and your father has killed the fatted calf to celebrate." Well, this older brother became angry and refused to go into the house. So the father came out and pleaded with him. But the older brother said, "Oh, Father, listen, for all these years I have worked like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. But the son of yours returns after squandering your property on wild women, and you killed the fatted calf for him?" And the father said, "My son, you are always with me, and whatever I have is yours. But we had to kill the fatted calf and celebrate, because this brother of yours was dead and now is alive. He was lost and now is found." That's the story of the prodigal son. Now, if you notice, it doesn't really have a solid ending. We're left with the question, does the older brother go into the party or not? That was rhetorical device that Jesus sometimes used to leave a question in our minds, to keep us working on how we thought the story might end. And so I invite you to think it through. I would also invite you to think how you would play this story. How would you tell it? What might you emphasize, one thing over another thing? It's a very deep story with many levels. Sometimes we see ourselves as the younger son, sometimes as the older son. Do you think what the father did was right and just? Was it fair? These are the questions that stories like this bring to us. Enjoy.